to talk to the folks from the Republican National Committee, and of course we're going to be chatting about the upcoming SOTU. Everything in Washington, D.C. has got, if it's important, it has an acronym. State of the Union Address. We have joining us this afternoon, and I hope we can work through her very rich Italian accent, considering her name is Kayleigh McEnany. What part of Ireland, what part of Italy are you from, Kayleigh? Good afternoon to you, and good evening to you.
Hi, it's actually an Irish
I know
name.
it.
I'm not quite sure because we came to the U.S. so long ago. I'm more of a Floridian than I am Irish.
Well, no, looking at the name, Kayleigh, K-A-Y-L-E-I-G-H, Kayleigh McEnany, I'm going, I think she's a little Irish. Kayleigh,
yes.
Good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. My first question, and I got a note earlier today from Ryan, and noting that the Speaker of the House has tendered an offer to the President for a SOTU address, that's State of the Union Address. You know, I want to show that I'm with the in crowd. I know the acronyms. But my first question is, how confident that this offer is sincere and might not be withdrawn?
Well, you never know with Nancy Pelosi. She has a way of going back on her word, much like she did the last time. But all barring any craziness from Nancy and her far left crowd, I think that this is going on next Tuesday. It will be a great speech. It'll give the president a chance to address the nation. His State of the Union address last year was quite effective. As you'll remember, he had everyday Americans stand up all across the room with different stories, and in a very powerful moment, a family who lost their daughter to a criminal illegal immigrant who shouldn't have been in this country stood up with tears in their eyes, and it was very effective and really showed us the human toll of illegal immigration. And I think if I had to guess, I would expect that we'll get a little bit more of that just like last year.
With that said, let's talk about the debacle of the last State of the Union address, and of course the decision by the Speaker to withdraw an original invitation, which a lot of folks were not aware of, that she had already invited the president. In fact, there had already been a, well, shall we say, a casual agreement between the two that the address was going to be conducted back in, I think it was the 29th of January. The question I have is, does this in any way, and this is going to be a part of a broader question, but does this fact that the original offer was withdrawn, now we're coming back to the second offer, what does this do to the overall opinion of the State of the Union address? Because in the past, the State of the Union was the opportunity for the president really to have a massive platform, because he's addressing both chambers of Congress, along with the Supreme Court justices and members of the military, et cetera, et cetera. My question, did that withdrawal of the earlier offer, does it in some way cheapen the activities of the State of the Union address?
I think what it does is it diminishes an American tradition. Nancy Pelosi's actions diminish that tradition. And, it is a constitutional duty of the president to give the State of the Union. It could be in writing. It has been in writing before. But since Woodrow Wilson, virtually every president has used this moment as a chance to address the nation in the U.S. House chambers. So for Nancy Pelosi to extend this invitation as she did, you're right to say that many Americans did not know this, and they did not know that she extended this invitation during the government shutdown.
Right.
So literally nothing changed. The government shutdown didn't change. She just decided the politics of it changed and withdrew it. And the fact that she did that, it just showed that we can't have a bipartisan moment anymore, that the Democrats have become so radical. We can't just have this moment to say, let's come together, let's put our differences aside, and let's sit before, the President of the United States and behind him the Vice President and the House Speaker, and just have a moment of American unity, which is very unfortunate that that's where we're at.
All right. Joining us this afternoon, by the way, Kayleigh McEnany. She's national spokesperson for the Republican National Committee. Kayleigh, looking at the State of the Union and, of course, literally the State of the Union, the shutdown, et cetera, might also be more anticipation as a result, particularly the shutdown now that it has been momentarily or temporarily rescinded. But we still have another date just around the corner. If failure, I think, is it the 15th of February that the president has said he's prepared to shut it down again. Might this also, if you will now, paradoxically raise the level of anticipation for this coming Tuesday's presentation?
Yeah, I do think that the stakes are high and raised because Americans are just now, coming around to the reopening of the government. We obviously have this 3-week deadline. So there's a lot that has been going on in this short time here in 2019 that we've had so far. So I think interest is peaked. I think Americans want to see how divided government will work. And if I have to assess it thus far, we've seen a president who's repeatedly made deals, repeatedly said, I'm not sacrificing my principle. We need to have a southern barrier, but I will make compromise where I can. I'll add in some things that Democrats want, like $800 million in humanitarian funding, things that don't sacrifice our principles, but that we can give so that we can come together and get a deal. And this president has acted in good faith. And I think the State of the Union will be yet another example of that in the times of divided government, there's only one party, there's only one individual, President Trump, ready to work together and to move our country forward on a bipartisan basis. But unfortunately, Nancy Pelosi doesn't seem to agree. So yes, State of the Union, a lot of eyes are going to be on the president in that moment.
Do you anticipate that this time around, again, because the recent events that we've had with the shutdown, we might actually see an increased number of viewers watching that? And I'm going to be interested in your observations related to the rebuttal that has been accommodated in years past. But first question, might this, as a result of the shutdown, actually garner a lot more attention? And might that be a negative to the opposition party?
I do think there will definitely be a lot of eyes on it, perhaps more than in the past because of recent events. And the rebuttal is being given by Stacey Abrams. She was the Democratic gubernatorial candidate down in Georgia.
Wait a second. Stacey Abrams, the failed gubernatorial candidate who made some egregious accusations.
That's right. Of voter fraud and
yes,
exactly.
She's the one giving the rebuttal.
That's right.
Oh,
yep.
Now we really have news. Kayleigh, thank you very much. Forget the State of the Union address. Let's talk about continue on about the rebuttal. I apologize.
No, that's okay. Yes, she will be giving it, and she, of course, is someone who encouraged all illegal immigrants to go out and vote. It was really quite incredible, and she will be giving the Democratic response. And if you'll remember, Democratic responses haven't turned out too well in the past. Last year's was a disaster, and the most recent example of a response to the President's Oval Office address with Chuck and Nancy also didn't turn out too well either, as you'll recall.
Right. And, of course, I would argue quickly that that was inappropriate just from the get-go. The whole issue of the rebuttal, okay, I see no value in that in light of the fact that, as has been pointed out by many of our callers in the past here at the talk station, the rebuttal is automatic with the president simply because many of the news outlets immediately go to critiquing the president's speech and his observations, and then they just piled on by having both the speaker and the Senate minority leader stand there in their funereal expressions to offer up a rebuttal. I was thinking of the Abrams family as they were giving their rebuttal that last time. So Stacey Abrams is giving the rebuttal. They don't have an elected official doing this. That's just, what does that say to you, Kayleigh?
Yeah, it's very interesting. It maybe tells us that Democrats did not learn from the last election, from the midterm elections in November, because if they learned, they would see that the rising stars, or the folks that they had kind of ordained as the rising stars of the Democratic Party, didn't win their races. Andrew Gillum didn't win. Stacey Abrams didn't win. Very simple reason why they didn't. It's because they profess socialist policies, far left extremist policies, like open borders and abolish ICE.
But wait a second.
They choose.
Why not let Andrea Ocasio-Cortez or Kamala Harris, who's announced for president? Why not let that is a surprise to me. It's going to take me a couple of hours, maybe a couple of days to get my brain around this one. Joining us this afternoon and breaking news for us here on Viewpoints is Kayleigh McEnany. We now know not only will the president, as it is currently scheduled, give a State of the Union address. Well, we've got a few days. We have until Friday probably for a rescission of the offer if the Speaker so decides. But we understand now that Stacey Abrams of Georgia, failed gubernatorial candidate, will be giving the rebuttal. I'm smiling. When was this announcement related to the rebuttal made?
I think fairly recently. I found out about it, I think a few hours ago, and I believe it was Chuck Schumer who announced it. And I think he said he had asked her 3 weeks ago, but decided to announce it today. So, interesting choice indeed. Socialism doesn't win the day, and I think Stacey Abrams is just a bad choice.
Well, I'm smiling. I hope you're prepared for it. I mean, my goodness, it's going to be tough. Kayleigh, let's talk here before we wrap it up. What do you anticipate will be the topics of the President's State of the Union address? Would one of them happen to do with the wall? Maybe? Possibly?
Oh, for sure. We will certainly be hearing about that. And as I noted at the top, probably with the real-life examples of people who have been affected by illegal immigration, either by drugs pouring over our border, opioids, or criminal illegal immigrants who have crossed and shouldn't have been here. So we'll hear about that for sure. I would suggest we probably hear about the booming economy as well, and many other Trump achievements, including his recent announcement to acknowledge a new government in Venezuela, as opposed to the socialist one that had really failed the people and fraudulently called himself the new leader of Venezuela. So I anticipate we'll hear all of that along with much more.
Well, the other question I have then goes to, will this give Republicans a sense of confidence? That's number one. And two, might it also be an opportunity to influence, well, I don't know, any conservative Democrats that might still survive in Washington, D.C.? It strikes me that the Democrats have a lot to lose. The Republicans have very little at stake here. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Democrats do have a lot to lose, and they never quite seem to learn. I would think, if they wanted to change their route, they'd find a moderate Democrat, if one still exists anywhere in the party, and put them out to give the State of the Union response. They, give wall funding in exchange for all of the great things that the president has offered. But so far, they seem to double down on the same failed strategy that cost them the election in 2016. So bad choices by the Democrats.
All right. I think the important story we just gained a few moments ago, and apparently was earlier today, that former Georgia candidate Stacey Abrams will give the State of the Union response. I'm focused. I'm obsessing over that. My apologies, Kayleigh. That doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense. You think you'd choose someone who won their election, who's a model for how to win. But
wait a second.
Thus far, no.
Wait a second. On the second thought, it usually has been, as you mentioned a few moments ago, a kiss of death for those elected officials who give that State of the Union rebuttal. And maybe they couldn't find any elected individual who was willing to take that chance.
Yeah, perhaps not, because it usually ends the career of whoever gives the State of the Union response. So that could be the case. Yeah,
it's jinxed. Okay, Kayleigh, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Look forward to chatting with you probably in the future, possibly post SO2 address. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Kayleigh, again, Kayleigh McEnany. I made a joke about her being Italian. I recognize that she is Irish. But anyhow, with that name, obviously. All right, we're going to go back to a local issue here in just a few moments. We're going to be joined by Rudy Rudolph, Carter County Shore Protection Office, related to a $5 million project on beach nourishment, but also the governor has stepped in, and the region has also benefiting from some major grants, over $1 million total. Now, not in one location, total, but Atlantic Beach and Cape Carteret are two communities that are going to benefit from these state funds. Stay with us here for more here on Viewpoints on the Talk Station FM 107 AM 1240.